Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Wolf back again. Another video, Master Duels. You might have seen my previous videos talking about the structure decks. I will be making some future videos on how to make the structure decks better, just in case you're looking for ways to improve them and you're a budget player slash you don't have much time. And that leads me to today's video, staples. These are going to be 15 staples that I think every duelist should have. They're going to translate from pretty much deck to deck. You will be able to play them in every deck. You may not play all of these in every deck, but you'll play at least one card from this list in every deck, guaranteed. And I'm going to explain why. Now, in Master Duels, there are a lot of staples. In Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, there are a lot of staples. These are going to be, I think, necessary to play the game. So we're going to start with monsters, and I've chose the 5, I think, best staple monsters to have, the 5 best spells to have, and the 5 best traps to have. So when it comes to monsters, spoiler, they're all hand traps. Every single one of these monsters are hand traps. That's what makes them staples, and that's why you can play them in every deck. They essentially will disrupt your opponent, in some cases stop your opponent from doing their combos, which will then allow you to get into the engine and the combos of your deck. We're going to start off with Effect Veiler. During your opponent's main phase, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one effect monster your opponent controls. Negate the effect of that face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. You're going to want to use this in situations where, let's say, you're familiar with your opponent's deck and it's about to start some combos and lead to a flurry of special summons and big bodies. You can stop that. You can just stop the combo right then and there. Now, they may have a follow-up, and that's okay. They're not really going to make a stronger board as they could have, with you stopping either the combo kicks off everything, or a combo that you think might lead into kicking off everything. Now, if you're newer to the game, it's going to be hard to determine when to use Effect Veiler, so just use it. Use it as liberally as you possibly can, because you're only going to learn through experience when are the best times to use Effect Veiler. Next up, Duel and Lockbird. This card, I think, has seen crazy value in Master Duels so far. If a card is added from main deck to your opponent's hand, except during the draw phase, that's going to happen pretty much every game. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard for the rest of this turn. Cards cannot be added from either player's main deck to hand. Your opponent adds one card to the hand, you can stop the rest of essentially their combos if they add cards to the hand a lot. If the deck is built to add cards to the hand and you know that, and you have this turn 1, you're going to want to activate it immediately. There's nothing you're waiting on. Again, most of these hand traps are going to be pretty defensive. And when I say defensive, I mean your opponent's going first, you're going second. Your opponent's going to try to make a board to make it where you can't play the game. These hand traps are going to make it where you can disrupt that, and it gives you a chance to play the game on your turn. And so Duel and Lockbird is one of those cards where it gives you a chance to play the game. It stops your opponent from adding cards and going plus and just getting into their whole bag of combos, especially if the deck is predicated on adding cards to their hand from the deck, such as a Sky Striker, or such as, I don't know, Perform Pals and Odd Eyes, things of that nature. Maxi. Maxi, the card everyone is calling to be limited. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a monster, immediately draw one card. You can only use one Maxi per turn. This is dangerous because, again, if your opponent's going first and you're going second, the moment they kick off a special summon and you play this, that's just the first special summon. We know nobody's stopping that one special summon unless the deck is a bit slow or they bricked. So now your opponent has a choice to make. I can special summon 5 to 7 times and give him 5 to 7 cards, at which, because it's not your turn, you don't have to discard any of that, and you're starting your turn with an extreme advantage. Or your opponent just has to stop special summoning right then and there. So it really puts your opponent in a tough predicament to which they could win or lose the game based off the decisions they make right then and there. That's pressure. You're always going to want to apply pressure, and Maxi is a card that allows you to do that. Ash Blossom, Joyous Spring. Now you might be familiar with this card because you could get one of these in a bundle, the 750 gem bundle that you can find in a shop. When a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, you can discard this card, negate the effect, add a card from the deck to the hand, something that happens frequently, especially summon from the deck. That can also happen, maybe not as frequently as the add a card from the deck to the hand. Send a card from the deck to the graveyard. Happens, but not as frequently, like I said, as add a card from the deck to the hand. You can only use this effect of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring once per turn. So if you got multiple in hand, you can only use it once, but it could stop a combo. Now, typically your opponent will have some secondary backup plan or other combos he could do after you activate Ash Blossom. So again, just like Effect Veiler, you're going to want to use this as liberally as possible so you can get familiar with it and learn when to use it. And as you become more familiar with matchups and what different decks like to do, you'll become more of an expert on exactly when to use Ash Blossom in the perfect time to disrupt your opponent. Now, one of my favorites out of the hand traps is going to be Nibiru, the Primal Being. Know what you're saying? How can an 11-star, 3,000 attack monster be a hand trap? Well, this is how. During the main phase, if your opponent's normal or special summoned 5 or more monsters this turn, quick effect, you contribute as many face-up monsters on the field as possible, and if you do special summon this card from your hand, then special summon one Primal Being token, Rock Light, level 11 attack, question mark, defense, question mark, to your opponent's side of the field. This token's attack and defense become the combined original attack and defense of the attributed monsters. You can only use this effect of Nibiru, the Primal Being, once per turn. So, that being said, when your opponent special summons 5 or more normal or special summons 5 or more monsters, so whenever they essentially summon 5 or more times, you can then choose to activate Nibiru. It is going to sacrifice all monsters on the board, including your monsters. So if this is a mid to late game situation, your monsters are out of there too. But you end up essentially not only disrupting, but maybe even stopping your opponent in their tracks by special summoning this card from your hand to your side of the field. You're going to want to special summon him in attack mode, depending on the situation. And no matter the situation, you're always going to want to summon the token in defense mode, because the token will always will typically always have higher attack than the Nibiru, and for you to swing over it, you're going to want to put it in defense mode. So remember that, especially if it's their main phase 1 and you summon something that big in attack mode, they will swing with it and then you lose the advantage. So you're going to want to summon the token in defense mode. 9 out of 10 times it could be a random situation where you do need to summon it in attack mode. And Nibiru is my favorite because it gets rid. It's like a hand trap Raigeki, essentially. So yeah, or I guess a hand trap Dark Hole. Yeah, it wipes your monsters as well, but it's worth it because it gives you a chance to play the game, and that's what all these hand traps are for, to give you a chance to play the game. Now, the spells were a little bit more tricky. With spells, you're generally looking to either wipe out back row, wipe out monsters, or draw. So Upstart Goblin, draw 1 card, then your opponent gains 1,000 life points. In a TCG, I believe this card is limited 1. In Master Duel, you can play 3. Draw 1 card, your opponent gains 1,000 life points. I know what you're thinking. Why would I want to give my opponent 1,000 life points? It's far more valuable that you plus a card than your opponent has 1,000 life points, because you could easily deal with the life points if you can dig for that 1 extra card that you need to get your combo started, or that you need to make the perfect board. Pot of Desires, banish 10 cards from the top of your deck face down, draw 2 cards. You can only activate 1 Pot of Desires per turn. I know what you're thinking. Why would I banish 10 cards from the top of my deck, especially face down, meaning you don't know what they are? Although you could look at the duel log and figure out what they are, and then draw 2 cards. In case you hadn't noticed from my description of Upstart Goblin, if giving your opponent 1,000 life points is worth 1 card, Banishing 10 cards again off the top of your deck to draw 2 cards. Again, the chance to get into your combos, the chance to set up the perfect board, the chance to essentially win, right? Especially if you're going second, the chance to win. So don't think about it in terms of I'm giving up 10 to draw 2 cards. You're giving up 10 cards for a chance to win the duel or set yourself up for the perfect position. So that's how you kind of got to think about cost in cards. The cost is one thing, but you're not necessarily getting a card back for the cost. You're not necessarily getting a monster back for the cost. You're getting an opportunity. It's the opportunity worth the cost. And in this case, I believe so. Lightning Storm. If you control no face-up cards, activate one of these effects. Destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. Destroy all spell and trap your opponent controls. You're going to activate one Lightning Storm per turn. So perfect for going second. Again, like I said, a lot of this is going to be... A lot of these cards are basically so you can play the game. So Lightning Storm is one of those. You go second, your opponent made a board of nasty, heinous, big body Miyagis. Wipe it. Oh, you're dealing with a Yami Yugi Trap Lord? Wipe the traps. MST, same thing. You get to target a back row and just destroy it. You get to put some pressure on your opponent and force them to either activate the card or they lose it. And this should allow you to bring things onto the board safely. Yeah, you might have to face some hand traps, but it's better. Like you can only deal with the threat that you know. So you know that they might have some back row that could disrupt you. So MST, I think, is a pretty good budget. If you got the, I think, Blue Eye Structure deck, you should have a play set of these. Otherwise, again, rare is pretty easy resource to get. So you shouldn't have any problems crafting a playset of these. Sure, there are better cards, but MST is always going to be a staple, always. Forbidden Lands. Now, it was tough figuring out the 5th card for this slot, but I think Forbidden Lands is highly underrated. It's a quick play, so on your turn, you can activate it in your hand. If you feel like you might need it on your opponent's turn, you can set it. Target one face-up monster on the field until the end of this turn. That target loses 800 attack, but is unaffected by the effects of other spells / traps. So what this does is allows you to bring out a monster. Now, bearing any monster hand traps, this allows you to then, you bring out a monster, your opponent activates a trap or a spell to stop it. You then, in response, activate Forbidden Lance, making your monster immune to other spell and traps, meaning it's safe. It's free passage to do whatever it pleases on the board. Your opponent can do nothing about it with spell and traps. So this has completely saved the game. Many times I have a card to stop my opponent. I wait for the right time, I activate it, boom, Forbidden Lands. They're not affected by it. They win the game. And vice versa. So I think it's a really flexible spell card that you're going to want maybe 1 to 2 of. Whatever, however many copies you choose to play of any of these is going to be up to you. Some of them are way better at 3. Some of them you can get away with 1 to 2 of. Drowning Mirror Force to kick off the traps. Look, there's plenty of staple trap cards, right? And in a lot of cases, your deck might not even play that many trap cards. And if it does, it's going to play trap cards that help the archetype of the deck and are specific to the deck. But there are just some trap cards that are just good and you can catch your opponent off guard. I believe Drowning Mirror Force is one of them. They're swinging while you have, okay, when an opponent monster declares a direct attack, shuffle all your opponent's attack position monsters to the deck. So they're swinging while you have no monsters on board. Drowning Mirror Force, boom. It's not destroying them, so they're not going to get any special effects. It's not banishing them, so they can't really make a play off of it. It's sending everything back to the deck. At worst case scenario, main phase 2, whatever monster you send back to the extra deck, maybe they could bring out 1 more of it. Like maybe they could bring it back out if it was multiple. There's no way they could bring them all back out. So it's very disruptive and avoids a lot of extra effects after you destroy cards. As you know, sometimes you destroy a card in Yu-Gi-Oh! And something even worse happens. Infinite Impermanence Target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effect. Then, if this card was set before activation and is on the field at resolution for the rest of this turn, all other spell / trap effects in this column are negated. Now, that part of the effect can kind of come into play if you set it across from your opponent's spell and trap and are able to activate it before they activate theirs. They're not going to be able to activate it, but you're going to really want it for the second part. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. You're going second, your opponent's going first. They do something crazy, negate the monster effect, disrupt the combo, and hope that they don't have a follow-up, or hope that their follow-up to that is not as strong as it would have been without this disruption. Solemn Judgment, my personal favorite out of all of these trap cards. When a monster would be summoned or spell trap card is activated, pay half your life points, negate the summon or activation. If you do, destroy that card. Back when I was playing the TCG, back around the 6 Sam, what was it? 6 Sam, Dragoons, Hazy, Fist of the Brotherhood meta, the Dino Rescue, what was it? Rescue Rabbit meta, or some meta, right? Where you play, I think it was either Rescue Rabbit or the Rescue Cat. You play one of those, and it leads to you bringing out a really big dinosaur. Well, Solemn Judgment, negate the summon of the cat or the rabbit. I forget which one it was. Negate the summon. That's it. Your opponent passes turn, you win game. A lot of the times, if you can negate that initial summon, your opponent may not have a follow-up. I know what you're thinking. Half my life points, so I made 8,000. That's 4,000. Have your life points for a chance to win the game. What did I say? Does the opportunity, is it worth the cost? It's worth the cost. Solemn Judgment is always worth the cost. The opportunity to shut your opponent down and win the game. All I gotta do is pay 4,000 life points and I win the game. I'll take it. Solemn Scolding, similar, but it's a rare. This is a real budget one, so it can more or less do the same thing, and it's on a budget, but it has a steeper price. If this is the only set card in your spell and trap zone, so this could be the only card that you set, then when a monster would be summoned or a spell or trap card activated or monster effect is activated, pay 3,000 life points, negate the summon or activation. If you do, destroy that card. So you only pay 3,000, which is going to be less than Solemn Judgment if you were sitting at 8,000. More in other cases, right? If you're at 500 life points and you activate Solemn Judgment, you only pay 250 life points. That's why it's also good. The less life points you have, the less it costs to stop your opponent. But the steepness of, if this is the only set card, which in today's Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not that steep, because you're not really playing that much back row. There's very few people that are just back row lords like that. A lot of people have moved on to spells and quick plays and hand traps, that they're not setting as many traps as they would have back in the day. Meta changes can impact that a little bit, but Solemn Scolding is going to be a staple and a budget one at that. And the last one, Solemn Strike. So as you can see, these trap cards are really meant to negate a wide variety of things, mainly monster effects and summonings. And then that's pretty much what you want your traps to do. But when a monster would be special summoned or a monster effect is activated, pay 1,500 life points, negate the summon or activation. If you do, destroy that card. So as you can see, these are my 15 staples that I think every duelist should have, and then you're going to be splashing these in all of your decks. Staples are like the backbone to building any deck. If you got a great variety of staples, or at least the most necessary staples, then you can build any deck that you like and be okay with it, because it's going to allow you a chance to stop your opponent. It's going to give you a chance to actually play. It's going to give you a chance to get into your combos, and then from there, if your deck is strong enough, you should be able to have the advantage. And if it isn't, despite all of this, then maybe the deck isn't that good. But nonetheless, these are the cards that I think will give you the best chance to actually play the game and not just be frozen out or locked out of even playing your cards. And if you think that there are other staples that people should have, or that there are a better list of staples feel free to drop them below in the comment. And also, don't be afraid to click that subscribe button. But this is Wolf coming at you with another video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.